So I'm sure that many of you are probably in a state of panic right now. Many of you are probably worried, many of you are even scared about what the future might hold for you. We have lots of people out there concerned that their rights might be taken away. We have people here thinking that Donald Trump is trying to essentially ethnically cleanse the United States of America. We've got other people claiming that Donald Trump is going to be an authoritarian fascist and that he will just oppress the people with the heel of his jackboot. A lot of people saying a lot of things right now. And because of that, a lot of Americans are very scared at the moment. But there are a few things I'd like to say to those of you who are scared and worried about the potential for a Donald Trump presidency. The first thing I'd like to say is, depending on how old you are, you might actually remember that this is not the first time that Donald Trump has been president before. He was actually president if you go all the way back to 2016. Taking the clock all the way back to the previous decade in 2016, Donald Trump was president. And when Donald Trump was president, I would recommend not thinking to media rhetoric, not thinking to accusations of what he might not have done to random women. How did Donald Trump's presidency affect you directly, affect you specifically? Was it harder for you to put food on your table? Was it more dangerous for you to walk down the street and that being the fault of the federal government, not local law enforcement? Was it harder for you to speak your mind in public where your First Amendment rights trampled on? Was it harder for you to exercise other rights of yours, like the Second Amendment? Was it harder for you to legally bear arms? These are the types of things that I think are important to measure when it comes to, okay, has this president been good for me or has this president been bad for me? Many people use a lot of hyperbole about what the president can and can't do, but the president actually has a lot less power than a lot of these pundits would give them credit for, to be honest. Many issues are actually state level. You might be mad at some things that are going on in your state, like crime, for example, but that's the responsibility of your state. Let's say you're a fan of Trump, okay? Don't rely on Donald Trump to fix crime in your state or fix crime in your city. I would complain to the local police department for that. So there's that to consider as well. If you are afraid of a Donald Trump presidency, consider one, that you survived the Donald Trump presidency, and consider two, that all the things that Donald Trump did that affected you. You probably can't think of too many things that Donald Trump did that affected you negatively, if I had to wager there. But then there's also Donald Trump's upcoming term. A lot of people are going to say a lot of things about what Donald Trump is or isn't going to do as president of the United States. Some say he's going to enact Project 2025, but he himself has said that he actually won't. And if you want to get a grasp on what Donald Trump is going to do in this next presidential election, I would recommend going to this playlist here. This is posted by Donald Trump. It's called Agenda 47. It's filled with videos explaining what Donald Trump is going to do as president. And I plan on going through some of these videos. I've actually gone through 2 of these already to sort of get a grasp on what exactly Donald Trump is going to do. But, you can hear people slander the horse, or you can get the word straight from the horse's mouth. That's what I would recommend doing. You could address this from an existential level as well, I think, because, and I'll just use a personal personal story here. I guess you could say I'm a conservative. I'm closer to the center than most conservatives, but I would say that I am a conservative at the end of the day. And I am a Republican. When it was time for me to register as a party, it was hard for me to register as a Republican in my mind. And I was like, I don't know if they're as conservative as I am. But that was years ago. But I remember following politics as early as the 2008 presidential election cycle, which, it's kind of crazy because I was 8 years old. But, in that election cycle, it was, I want to say it was John McCain versus Barack Obama. And around that time, I was heavily listening to folks like Rush Limbaugh, folks like Mark Levin. I want to say I was listening to either Sean Hannity or Michael Savage at the time, as well. I can't remember if Michael Savage was on the air in my market at the time. But I was listening to them, and there was a lot of rhetoric on there about how Donald Trump was going to destroy America. He promised to fundamentally transform it. He had Obamacare, which a lot of pundits were saying on the right were saying would completely destroy the American healthcare system, cause all the costs to skyrocket, and cause healthcare to be inaccessible for more people than it provided healthcare for. All of these types of things. Basically, it was doom and gloom, and America was going to be destroyed. And so when and so when Obama ended up winning the 2008 presidential election, I was definitely distraught to a degree. I was very, very upset. And I had a sense that the nation would sort of be destroyed and we would begin a precipitous decline. But you know what ended up happening? Not a whole lot. There was a financial crisis, but to be fair to Obama, at least as I understand it, the 2008 housing crisis was not really Barack Obama's fault. I'm not a fan of him bailing out the banks, but the issue at hand was not his fault. If you look across his presidency, things actually weren't all of that bad. And so people were promising to me that we would be entering an era of socialism and in communism to the United States of America because Obama became president. That ended up not happening. And so when Barack Obama won again in 2012, I was not worried at all. But there was also another reason why I was not worried at all in the 2012 election cycle. And that was because by then, I don't think that this was the case when Obama became president, although this happened slightly after that. But by then, I had Jesus in my life. I follow politics pretty heavily. I've always followed politics pretty heavily. But I was not as worried about the future of the nation and putting so much stock into what pundits say at that time. Because I wasn't relying on a president to save me or to save the country or whatever. Because, hey, let's be honest. The person that you want to be president can become the president and actually destroy the country rather than save it. I know this full well. I know full well that Donald Trump might not have a second term as good as his first term. And I've said this before on this stream. I'm not expecting Donald Trump to save America or save me or anything else. The only person that can really truly save anyone is Jesus. And so if you feel like this existential weight of the election results, maybe consider that you should not be relying on these people who, by the way, don't care about you at all. By the way, most of these people, even Donald Trump, probably only care about their political prospects and their fame or their careers or whatever. These people don't actually care about you. So you should not be putting so much weight on the presidency of someone who doesn't care about you, doesn't have your best interests at heart, to do the right thing to save the country and save democracy until 4 more years when democracy is once again on the line and you once again are acting like America is on the brink of a precipitous collapse. And I think that, even if you're not religious, I think that there are two promises that I think would be helpful to consider or embrace, even if you're not going to embrace the entire gospel. I think embrace these two things in this upcoming election and presidency. These next few years will be easier for you. First of all, it's that if you put your trust and faith in him, that Jesus Christ will forgive you of your sins, and when you die, you will end up going to heaven. And so what that means is that relieves the weight of a lot of things that happen here on earth, because something bad can happen on earth. It doesn't even have to be the election. And you can be just like, oh, well, it's fine. What happens here is temporary. Now, this doesn't mean that the things that happen on earth don't matter at all, but it means that it has less weight. It's not as scary. It's not as bad, because how bad can things be? The worst thing could happen in the world, but that what's on the other side is going to be better than whatever you're experiencing right now. So there's no need to act like it's the end of the world, because it's literally not the end of the world. And the actual end of the world is actually going to be pretty lit. Let's be honest. So there's that promise too. And the nice thing about that promise is this does not, it doesn't say, you will be in paradise when you die if you vote a particular way. No, that's not what Jesus says. Or if you are perfect. No, that's not what Jesus says. Or if you have everything all figured out. That's not what Jesus says either. He says none of these things. It's literally just trust in me and strive to follow me and pick up your cross, so to speak. I know it's Christian use. You might not understand that. He will forgive you and he will save you from your sins. That, I think, is a very comforting message. And, how bad can 4 years be when you have to consider that in eternity, things will be even better than your favorite president might be able to provide for you? I think that's a very comforting message. So there's that as well. But also there's the message that God has everything under his control. And it's up to him whether or not someone's president or someone's not president. He keeps nations in power and he lets them fall. So with that in mind, God has preserved the United States through George W. Bush, through Barack Obama, through Donald Trump, and through Joe Biden. Who was to say that it is outside of the power of God to maintain the United States through Donald Trump, even if you don't like him? Joe Biden has basically been at death's door for 4 years, and God has sustained the United States all this time. So that in and of itself is a miracle, okay? So if God could do that, can't he do that for Donald Trump as well? So you may not be religious. You might not be. That's why I front loaded this with more earthly comforts. But if you're open to religion, open to Christianity, I would say consider those two things that I mentioned here at the end. And at the very least, these next 4 years are going to be a lot better for you and easier for you to get through. And if you have any questions about Christianity, I am no theologian or scholar. I would recommend that you listen to sermons by like John Piper or R.C. Sproul or John MacArthur or other people before you go to me for advice. But if you wanted to ask me questions about Christianity or my faith, you can leave a comment down below or join the link on the screen. It's my Discord server, and I have a whole section called Religion about talking about religion and Christianity. And as people come up with questions, I come up with answers. So feel free to ask me questions about my faith. I'd be more than happy to field them.